When a billionaire father quietly watches a humble librarian read to his disabled son, he discovers a kind of wealth money can't buy and gives her the surprise of a lifetime. In a quiet little town, there was a small library that always smelled of old books, polished wood, and a hint of fresh paper. It wasn't the kind of library that drew attention from many people, but it had a warmth to it that made everyone who entered feel safe, welcome, and comfortable. The library had tall shelves stacked with books of all kinds: adventure, fantasy, history, and science. Each aisle seemed like its own little world, and the soft hum of the air conditioner mixed with the faint rustling of pages created a peaceful atmosphere. Emma, the librarian, had been working there for several years. She was a woman in her early 30s, always wearing a kind smile and a simple, practical outfit. Her hair was usually tied back to keep it out of her face, and her glasses always slid slightly down her nose as she moved between the shelves. Emma loved her job not because it was easy or prestigious, but because it allowed her to touch the lives of the children who came to the library. For her, every visit, every story read, and every curious question asked by a child was precious. She believed that books had a magic of their own, a power to change lives in ways that nothing else could. Among the children who came to the library regularly was a boy named Liam. Liam was around 7 years old, but life had already presented him with challenges that many adults would find difficult to face. He had physical disabilities that made simple things like walking or holding a book a struggle. Communicating with others was not easy for him either, and he often used gestures or expressions to convey what he wanted to say. Despite these challenges, Liam had an incredible love for stories. When he heard the word story, his face would light up in a way that made anyone around him smile. Every week, Liam's parents would bring him to the library, and he would find his favorite spot in the reading corner. Emma always made sure the corner was comfortable for him, arranging soft cushions and placing his wheelchair in a spot where he could see everything clearly. She never treated him differently because of his disabilities. To her, he was just another child who loved books. But she also knew that he sometimes needed extra patience and care. Reading to him wasn't just about words on a page. It was about making the story come alive in a way he could understand and feel. Emma had a special way of reading. She didn't just read the words. She acted them out with her voice, her expressions, and her gestures. If a character was excited, she would raise her voice slightly and clap her hands. If a scene was sad, she would lower her tone and speak slowly, letting the emotions sink in. She even used small props, sometimes soft toys, pictures, or little drawings to help Liam visualize the story. Over time, Liam had begun to respond to her in his own way. He would laugh at the funny parts, frown at the sad ones, and occasionally try to mimic her expressions. For Emma, these reactions were treasures. Each one was proof that the story was reaching him, touching him, and helping him feel something special. The library became more than just a place for Liam. It became his safe haven. Outside, the world could be confusing and harsh, but inside those walls, he felt understood. Emma had created an environment where he didn't have to struggle to fit in or explain himself constantly. She had the rare gift of seeing him for who he was, not just his challenges. Every week as she opened the book, Liam's eyes would light up with anticipation. Even on days when he seemed tired or frustrated, the sight of the colorful illustrations or the sound of Emma's voice would bring a sparkle to his face. Emma also noticed something beautiful happening slowly but surely. Liam was beginning to develop his own way of engaging with stories. He started pointing at illustrations, humming along with the rhythm of the words, and sometimes even repeating short phrases that he loved. It was as if the stories were helping him find his own voice, giving him tools to express himself in ways that hadn't been possible before. Emma found this progress deeply rewarding. She didn't just see it as teaching. She saw it as a friendship forming, a bond between a child and the person who shared his love for stories. Despite the difficulties Liam faced, he had a sharp mind and a vivid imagination. He could picture entire worlds in his head when Emma read aloud. He imagined castles with towering spires, forests filled with magical creatures, and oceans teeming with mysterious life. Emma encouraged this imagination by asking him questions, letting him describe what he saw in his mind, and even drawing his ideas on paper. Liam's parents were grateful to Emma for helping their son experience joy and adventure, something they sometimes feared he might miss out on due to his limitations. They saw him laughing, learning, and growing in ways they hadn't imagined possible. All thanks to the librarian, who treated him with patience, respect, and genuine care. What made Emma special wasn't just her love for books, but the way she treated every child as someone important, capable, and worthy of attention. She believed that stories were not just entertainment, they were lessons, escapes, and sometimes the only way a child could understand a world that often felt too big or too confusing. She knew that for some children, a librarian could become more than a teacher. They could be a guide, a friend, and even a bridge to a future full of possibilities. The routine of their weekly sessions was simple but sacred. Emma would carefully select a book, often choosing one she thought Liam might particularly enjoy, or one that carried a lesson about courage, kindness, or perseverance. She would sit beside him, open the book, and begin reading. Sometimes Liam would lean close, trying to touch the illustrations or follow her finger as she traced the words. Other times he would simply listen, letting the story wash over him like a gentle tide. Emma never rushed. She never made him feel that he had to keep up or respond in a particular way. She knew that patience and consistency were the most powerful tools she could offer. In that quiet library, a special kind of magic was happening. It wasn't magic in the sense of wizards or spells, but in the subtle, transformative way that care, attention, and understanding could touch a human heart. Liam was learning, growing, and feeling joy, all in a space that was small in size, but immense in impact. Emma, in her own gentle way, was changing his world. One story at a time. Every week ended with the same ritual. Liam would reluctantly close the book. Emma would give him a warm smile, and he would roll back to the entrance, already looking forward to the next session. As he left, Emma would tidy up the reading corner, often smiling to herself, thinking about the worlds they had explored together. She didn't realize it yet, but these moments, small, quiet, and seemingly ordinary, were creating memories that would last a lifetime. And they would also set the stage for something unexpected that none of them could have imagined. The library. The books, the boy, and the librarian, they were all pieces of a story in motion. A story that began in simple acts of kindness, patience, and love. And one day, it would ripple into something far bigger, touching hearts in ways that neither Emma nor Liam could foresee. But for now, in this peaceful corner of the town, all that mattered was the story. The laughter and the connection between a little boy and the woman who believed in the magic of words. Liam's visits to the library became the highlight of his week, and while Emma noticed his excitement, there was always someone else quietly watching from a distance. Jonathan, Liam's father, was not someone who usually entered public spaces or drew attention to himself. He was a billionaire, a man whose life was full of wealth, business deals, and responsibilities that seemed to touch every corner of the world. But in the quiet moments, his thoughts were almost always with his son. Jonathan loved Liam more than anything, and he wanted to give him everything the world could offer. But wealth alone could not create the kind of happiness he wanted for his son. He had spent years surrounding Liam with every possible luxury, hiring caregivers, tutors, and therapists, yet he often felt that something was missing. Liam seemed to enjoy the gifts and attention, but Jonathan noticed that the joy in his eyes was fleeting. It was different from the kind of pure, deep happiness that came from connection, understanding, and love, something that money could never buy. It was on one of these quiet afternoons that Jonathan first began to follow Liam to the library without anyone noticing. He would sit in the back corner, just far enough away to remain unseen, but close enough to observe. At first, it was simple curiosity. He wanted to see how Liam behaved outside the controlled environment of their home, how he reacted when he was free to explore and learn on his own terms. What he saw surprised him. Emma had a presence that Jonathan found remarkable. She didn't speak loudly or try to impress anyone. She wasn't flashy, and there was nothing about her that suggested she was extraordinary. Yet as she read to Liam, Jonathan could see something extraordinary in action. The way she smiled, adjusted her voice, and interacted with him went beyond just reading a story. She treated Liam as a person, not as someone with limitations. She didn't rush him, didn't show impatience when he struggled to respond, and celebrated every small effort he made. Jonathan had seen countless people work with his son therapists, tutors, and even other children, but none of them had captured his heart the way Emma did. With her, Liam wasn't just completing exercises or repeating words. He was fully engaged, smiling, laughing, and living the story. Emma had a gift that Jonathan had never seen before, a gift that went far beyond skill or technique. It was empathy, patience, and genuine care, all wrapped together in a way that allowed Liam to flourish. Over time, Jonathan began to realize just how rare this kind of connection was. The billionaire lifestyle often kept him busy with meetings, contracts, and public appearances, leaving little room for moments like these. Yet here, in this small library, he saw something that no amount of money could buy: the pure joy of a child being truly understood and cared for. He found himself looking forward to these visits, even though he made sure no one knew he was there. It became a secret part of his life, a private observation of the magic unfolding between Emma and Liam. But along with admiration, Jonathan also felt a pang of guilt. He was proud of his son, of course, and loved him deeply. But he realized that wealth and status could not replace the simple acts of attention and love that Emma gave freely. He wondered how many moments he had missed while focusing on business or maintaining appearances. The thought of his son experiencing happiness that he could not fully provide weighed heavily on him. There was a quiet ache inside him, a realization that no amount of money could bridge the emotional gap that sometimes existed between them. Despite these feelings, Jonathan also began to reflect on his own life. He had achieved so much, accumulated wealth beyond imagination, and wielded influence in ways most people could only dream of. Yet sitting in that library and watching Emma interact with Liam, he realized that the things that mattered most were not in bank accounts or skyscrapers. They were in smiles, laughter, attention, and love, the intangible moments that truly made life meaningful. It was a humbling experience, one that slowly began to change his perspective. Jonathan noticed the small details that made Emma extraordinary: how she would gently adjust Liam's chair when he leaned too far forward, how she encouraged him to describe what he imagined, and how she celebrated even the tiniest progress with genuine delight. She never made Liam feel less than because of his disability. She didn't focus on what he couldn't do. She focused on what he could do. And that mindset seemed to open doors in his mind and heart that Jonathan hadn't seen before. Jonathan began to realize that Emma was giving Liam something far more valuable than lessons or skills. She was giving him confidence. She was showing him day after day that he was capable, worthy, and loved just as he was. That kind of influence was priceless. Jonathan watched as Liam's eyes sparkled during each story, and it became clear to him that Emma's presence was helping his son grow in ways no therapy or tutoring session ever could. She was making his world bigger, brighter, and more joyful. Yet Jonathan remained careful, never revealing himself. He didn't want Emma to feel uncomfortable or pressured, and he wanted to ensure that her interactions with Liam remained genuine and untainted by his wealth or influence. Watching quietly allowed him to appreciate the simple truth: kindness and dedication could touch lives in ways he had never understood fully until now. It was a lesson he took to heart, and one he would carry with him long after leaving the library. But the more Jonathan observed, the more he wondered how he could show his gratitude without disrupting the natural bond between Emma and Liam. It wasn't about recognition or about creating a spectacle. It was about acknowledging a woman who had transformed his son's life in ways he could not, and whose selfless acts deserved to be celebrated. For the first time in years, he felt the stirrings of a plan, a way to honor her dedication while keeping Liam's happiness at the center. In these moments, Jonathan also began to understand something about himself. For all his accomplishments, he had sometimes underestimated the power of human connection. He had assumed that wealth and influence could solve problems, smooth over difficulties, or create happiness. But here, In this unassuming library, he saw the limits of money and the limitless power of care. It was a quiet revelation, subtle but profound, that slowly reshaped his view of life. Jonathan noticed how the library itself became a space of transformation. Not just for Liam, but for him as well. The calmness, the quiet, and the gentle interactions between Emma and Liam reminded him that life's most meaningful moments often happened away from the spotlight. They were found in ordinary spaces, in ordinary people, doing extraordinary things. Jonathan, who was used to grand gestures and public recognition, realized that true impact didn't need attention, it needed sincerity. Over weeks and months, he continued his quiet observations. He began to anticipate the little ways Liam responded to Emma's stories, the way he leaned forward in excitement, the small gestures of joy, the soft laughter that escaped him at the funny parts. Each reaction brought a quiet smile to Jonathan's face, a mixture of pride and gratitude. He realized that these sessions were becoming a source of hope not just for Liam, but for him too. They reminded him that love, patience, kindness could change lives in ways that money never could. Yet, with admiration came a quiet longing. Jonathan wanted to do something to make sure that Emma knew how much he valued her, how much she had affected Liam's life. But he also feared that any overt gesture might disrupt the delicate bond she had formed with his son. He wrestled with this thought, feeling both a sense of urgency and a desire to be respectful. The solution, he realized, would need to be thoughtful, sincere, and completely in keeping with the values he had begun to understand in this small library. Jonathan's time watching from afar became more than just observation, it became reflection. He saw the gaps in his own approach to parenting, the moments he had missed while focusing on wealth and work. He saw the pure, simple happiness that Emma brought to Liam. And he began to understand that life's greatest achievements were not in business deals or acquisitions, but in the ability to touch hearts, nurture growth, and bring joy. For the first time, he truly appreciated what it meant to make a difference in someone's life. In this quiet library, Jonathan was learning lessons that no classroom or boardroom could teach. He was learning that true gratitude involved more than acknowledgement, it involved action, thoughtfulness, and respect. He was learning that people like Emma, who gave without expecting anything in return, were rare treasures. And he was learning that sometimes the most meaningful way to help someone was not with money, but with genuine recognition, care, and support. As he watched Emma and Liam, he silently vowed that one day he would find a way to honor her, a way that would reflect the profound impact she had on his son. But for now, he remained a quiet observer, savoring the moments, cherishing the bond forming between them, and quietly learning the value of true kindness. As the weeks turned into months, the routine at the library became something both Liam and Emma looked forward to with excitement. Each session was a little adventure, a small escape from the challenges Liam faced in his daily life. He began to recognize Emma not just as a librarian, but as a friend, a guide, and someone who truly understood him. For Emma, the time spent with Liam was more than a part of her job. It was a chance to make a real difference in a child's life. Jonathan continued his quiet observation from a distance. Each week, he would watch Emma carefully select a book, adjust Liam's chair, and begin reading in her gentle, animated voice. He noticed the subtle ways she engaged him, the pauses to let him respond, the questions she asked to spark his imagination, and the way she celebrated his smallest successes. Each interaction left a mark not only on Liam, but on Jonathan himself. He began to see Emma not just as someone who helped his son, but as someone whose presence was changing the way he viewed life. Jonathan had always thought, that wealth could solve almost any problem. If a child needed education, he could hire the best tutors. If a child needed therapy, he could provide the finest specialists. But Emma's sessions with Liam revealed something money could not buy: genuine care, patience, and the ability to connect with someone on a deep emotional level. She had a natural gift that Jonathan realized was far more powerful than any service he could provide. Watching her, he began to understand that the most valuable things in life were not things at all. They were feelings, connections, and moments of understanding that could leave lasting impressions. Over time, Jonathan started to notice changes in Liam. The boy who had once struggled to engage now eagerly followed each story, pointing at pictures, repeating phrases, and even attempting to describe his own imaginative ideas. His eyes shone with excitement, and his laughter became more frequent, filling the library with warmth. Jonathan felt a quiet pride, but also a sense of humility. It was clear to him that Emma's influence was the reason behind this transformation. She wasn't just teaching Liam how to enjoy a story. She was helping him build confidence, find joy, and feel capable in a world that often made things difficult for him. Jonathan began to reflect on Emma as a person. He realized that her actions were not motivated by recognition, payment, or personal gain. She genuinely cared about the children she worked with, treating each one with respect and attention. It was rare to see someone so dedicated to helping others without expecting anything in return. This realization left Jonathan both amazed and inspired. He started to see her not just as a librarian, but as an extraordinary human being who had dedicated her life to making the world a better place, one child at a time. Watching Emma with Liam also caused Jonathan to think about his own life and priorities. He had spent years building a successful business, acquiring wealth, and managing complex deals. But these achievements suddenly felt distant and less meaningful in comparison to the simple, profound impact Emma was having. He realized that success wasn't measured by money or power, but by the ability to touch lives, inspire growth, and create happiness. Emma's selfless dedication challenged his understanding of what it meant to truly make a difference in the world. Jonathan began to consider how he could honor Emma's dedication. He didn't want to interfere with the bond she had developed with Liam, and he didn't want her kindness to feel transactional or influenced by his wealth. Yet, he felt a growing desire to show her that her efforts were noticed, appreciated, and deeply valued. He started thinking of ways to express his gratitude in a way that would be meaningful, respectful, and reflective of the extraordinary work she had done. It wasn't an easy task. How could he give back to someone who had given so much without asking for anything? As he pondered this, Jonathan also realized that Emma had changed something fundamental in him. He felt more attentive, more compassionate, and more aware of the impact one person could have on another's life. Her example inspired him to think differently about his own actions, relationships, and the way he approached his son's needs. For the first time in years, he saw the possibility of using his resources not just to provide material comfort, but to amplify genuine human kindness and create opportunities for others to make a real difference. Meanwhile, Liam's connection with Emma continued to deepen. He began to look forward to each session not only for the stories, but for the feeling of being understood and valued. He started sharing little ideas of his own, pointing to illustrations and asking questions. Even though he struggled to express himself fully, Emma encouraged him patiently, showing him that his thoughts mattered, and that his imagination could be shared and celebrated. These small moments built a foundation of trust and confidence that Jonathan could see clearly from afar. Jonathan noticed another remarkable thing. Emma treated every child she met with the same respect and care. Regardless of their abilities or circumstances, she didn't make Liam's disabilities the focus. She made his abilities, interests, and potential the center of attention. Jonathan realized that this mindset was rare and powerful. It reminded him that the right kind of encouragement and support could unlock possibilities that even money could not. Emma was helping Liam discover a world of imagination, curiosity, and self-expression, showing him and Jonathan what true guidance looked like. The more Jonathan observed, the more he understood that gratitude alone would not be enough. He wanted to do something meaningful, something that would honor Emma's dedication without diminishing the sincerity of her actions. He began to think deeply about what she might need or want. Realizing that her happiness and fulfillment were as important as his desire to express thanks, he considered ways to support her mission. Perhaps by providing resources, creating opportunities, or helping her expand her work to reach more children like Liam. But he knew that whatever he chose to do would need to be thoughtful, personal, and genuine. Jonathan's admiration for Emma continued to grow alongside his love for his son. He realized that watching her was teaching him more than he could have imagined. He was learning patience, empathy, and the true meaning of giving without expecting anything in return. Each session became not just an opportunity to observe, but a lesson in humanity, a reminder that kindness and attention could change lives in profound and lasting ways, even as he considered how to act. Jonathan remained careful not to disrupt the natural flow of Emma and Liam's relationship. He understood that any sudden or overly dramatic gesture could make things awkward or uncomfortable. Instead, he continued to watch quietly, taking note of the ways Emma inspired Liam, how she celebrated his efforts, and how she nurtured his imagination. Each session offered new insights, new moments of joy, and new ways of understanding the incredible value of genuine care. Jonathan also began to notice something unexpected. His presence, even from a distance, seemed to make him more attentive in other areas of his life. He started spending more time with Liam, trying to apply the lessons he was learning from Emma's interactions. He found himself listening more carefully, encouraging more, and appreciating the little moments in ways he hadn't before. Emma's example was influencing him indirectly, reshaping the way he approached parenthood, attention, and the meaning of wealth. Over time, Jonathan realized that this quiet observation had grown into something far more significant than he had anticipated. It wasn't just about Liam's happiness anymore. It was about recognizing and valuing the kind of selfless dedication that Emma represented. It was about acknowledging that some of life's most meaningful contributions come from ordinary people doing extraordinary things without expecting anything in return. And it was about preparing himself to express his gratitude in a way that would reflect the profound impact she had. Jonathan began to imagine a way to honor Emma that would celebrate her dedication while preserving the sincerity of her work. He thought about how he could use his resources to amplify her influence, perhaps helping her reach more children, expand her programs, or gain recognition that would allow her to continue doing what she loved. He knew that this gesture would need to be heartfelt, thoughtful, and completely in alignment with the principles she had demonstrated: kindness, patience, and a love for helping others. Watching Emma and Liam, Jonathan felt a mixture of admiration, humility, and inspiration. He realized that life's greatest moments were not found in wealth or power, but in the ability to touch hearts, inspire growth, make a genuine difference in someone's life. Each session reinforced this truth, showing him that the value of human connection far outweighed material riches. He began to understand that the right kind of support could transform not just Liam's life, but also the lives of those who dedicated themselves to helping others. The day finally arrived when Jonathan decided it was time to act. He had watched Emma and Liam for months, quietly observing the way she had transformed his son's world. Her dedication, patience, and genuine kindness had touched him deeply, teaching him lessons he could never have learned from business meetings or luxury purchases. Now he wanted to show her how much her efforts truly meant, not with a simple thank you, but with a gesture that reflected the extraordinary impact she had on both Liam's life and his own. Jonathan carefully planned everything. He did not want to make Emma feel uncomfortable or pressured. This had to be personal, sincere, and respectful. Honoring the natural bond she had with Liam, he decided to invite her under the pretense of discussing a donation to the library, a topic she cared about and had spent years supporting. Emma, ever committed to her work, was happy to meet. She arrived at the library, unaware that this meeting would change the course of her life forever. When she entered the reading room, Jonathan was waiting. He greeted her warmly, explaining that he wanted to discuss ways to support the library and its programs. Emma, naturally modest, was surprised but curious. She had worked in libraries for years, and funding and resources were always welcome. But she never expected something like this. Jonathan began to speak carefully, expressing his admiration for her dedication and the remarkable work she had done with Liam. He told her how much he had observed, how he had seen the connection she had built, and how profoundly it had affected his son's happiness and growth. Emma was taken aback. She had always seen her work as a simple duty, something she did out of love for children and books, not expecting recognition or reward. The sincerity in Jonathan's words struck her deeply. For a moment, she struggled to find words. She had never imagined that someone like Jonathan the wealthy, this influential father she had never met, had been watching her quietly, appreciating her efforts. The realization left her feeling both humbled and overwhelmed. Jonathan paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. He wanted Emma to understand that her dedication was not unnoticed. He spoke about the changes he had seen in Liam, the confidence, joy, and excitement she had helped him develop. He shared stories of small moments he had observed, the way Liam's eyes lit up when she described a magical world, how he laughed at her animated expressions, and how he began to attempt new ways of expressing himself. Jonathan explained that these changes had not only brought happiness to Liam, but it also inspired him as a father, showing him the true power of care, attention, and human connection. Then, Jonathan reached the moment he had been planning for so long. He revealed his identity, explaining that he was Liam's father and that he had been watching quietly to ensure that Emma's work remained authentic and natural. He wanted her to know that she had touched their lives in ways that could never be measured by money or material gifts. Emma's eyes widened in shock. She had no idea that she had been interacting with the son of a man so influential, nor that her work had left such a profound impact on his family. The moment was surreal, almost like a story itself. A librarian, who had quietly changed a boy's life, and now stood before a man who wanted to honor her in the most meaningful way possible. Jonathan then presented her with the surprise he had been planning, a transformative gift that reflected the depth of his gratitude. He offered to fund a program that would allow Emma to expand her literacy initiatives, bringing books, reading sessions, and resources to children across the city or even the country. He explained that he wanted her to have the freedom to pursue her passion without constraints, to reach more children like Liam, and to continue making a difference in ways she had never imagined possible. The gesture was not about fame or recognition. It was about empowering her to amplify the work she loved and to continue touching lives with the same passion and care she had shown Liam. Emma was overwhelmed. Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to comprehend the magnitude of Jonathan's generosity. For someone who had devoted her life to helping others without expecting anything in return, this was beyond her wildest dreams. It wasn't just the money, the resources, or the opportunity that mattered. It was the acknowledgement that her work was valuable, meaningful, and impactful. It was the understanding that she had made a difference not just for one child, but for many, and that her dedication had been seen, appreciated, and celebrated. Liam, sensing the excitement and change in the room, smiled shyly. He had grown to trust Emma deeply, and he felt happy seeing someone he loved being honored. He didn't fully understand the complexity of Jonathan's gesture, but he felt the warmth, pride, and joy that filled the space. Emma knelt beside him, smiling through tears, and gave him a gentle hug. The connection between them, already strong, felt even more profound in that moment. It was a moment of shared joy, gratitude, and understanding, a memory that would stay with all three of them forever. Jonathan watched this exchange with a sense of fulfillment and relief. He had wanted to show appreciation without diminishing the authenticity of Emma's work, and the moment was perfect. He had given her a gift that would allow her to continue her mission, honoring her dedication while ensuring that her impact could grow even further. For him, it was also a personal lesson. True generosity was not measured by wealth alone, but by the thoughtfulness, sincerity, and respect behind the act. The surprise had an immediate effect on Emma. She began to imagine new possibilities, programs for children in remote areas, reading sessions for kids with disabilities, and partnerships with other libraries and schools. The funding and support Jonathan provided gave her freedom and confidence to dream bigger, to take risks she had never dared to consider, and to expand her mission in ways that could touch countless lives. For someone who had always worked quietly and humbly, this moment represented recognition, validation, and an opportunity to magnify her passion. Over the following days, Emma reflected on the experience repeatedly. She realized that her small acts of kindness, repeated week after week, had led to something far greater than she had ever imagined. Reading to Liam had started as a simple duty, a way to help a child enjoy stories. But it had blossomed into a life-changing connection that had brought recognition, opportunity, and support she never expected. It was a powerful reminder that dedication, patience, and genuine care could ripple outward in ways that touched lives far beyond the initial act. Jonathan, too, felt the lasting impact of the day. He had witnessed firsthand the transformative power of empathy and attention. His admiration for Emma deepened, and he understood that supporting someone who was already doing good work could create far greater results than attempting to intervene directly. He had also learned a valuable lesson about gratitude, that showing appreciation in a meaningful, thoughtful way could be as transformative for the giver as it was for the recipient. In the weeks and months that followed, Emma's life began to change in visible ways. She received invitations to speak about literacy programs, opportunities to collaborate with other educators, and resources that allowed her to expand her library's reach. Yet, despite the recognition and support, she remained humble, focused on the children she served, and committed to her mission. Jonathan continued to stay involved quietly, supporting her efforts while giving her the space to grow her work independently. The surprise he had given her was not a one-time act. It was a starting point for a journey that would continue to benefit countless children and families. Most importantly, Liam continued to thrive. The joy and confidence he had gained through Emma's guidance grew stronger. He began to participate more actively, engaging with stories, expressing his thoughts, and imagining new worlds with increasing creativity. The connection he had with Emma remained unbroken, strengthened by the recognition and support she had received. Jonathan observed this with quiet pride, understanding that his son's happiness was intertwined with Emma's influence, and that the ripple effects of kindness could be truly remarkable. After the surprising and life-changing meeting, life for Emma, Liam, and Jonathan entered a new chapter. For Emma, the gift she had received was not just about money or resources. It was about recognition and opportunity. She had spent years quietly dedicating herself to children, sharing stories, nurturing imagination, and encouraging growth. She never sought attention or rewards. And yet, a gesture from Jonathan, the billionaire father who had quietly observed her work for months, proved that even small, consistent acts of care could create ripples that reached far beyond their immediate impact. Emma was still processing everything. She returned to the library the next week with a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and determination. She had big plans in her mind, ideas she had always dreamed about but never had the means to pursue. Now, with the support Jonathan had offered, she could expand her literacy programs to more children, including those in hospitals, schools with fewer resources, and communities where reading was not always accessible. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, one that was even stronger, because she knew her efforts were truly valued. When Liam arrived, he noticed a change too. There was an extra sparkle in Emma's eyes, an energy that seemed to flow from her into the stories she read. The library, once familiar and comforting, now felt even more alive with possibility. Emma shared some of her plans with Liam in a way he could understand, using simple words, gestures, and illustrations. Liam responded with enthusiasm, pointing at pictures, humming along, and attempting to use words he had practiced. Even with his challenges, he was eager to participate, showing confidence and joy that Jonathan noticed quietly from the corner. Just as he always had, Jonathan himself felt a sense of fulfillment he had not experienced before. Watching Emma and Liam together, he realized that wealth and influence could accomplish many things, but they could never replicate the power of genuine human connection. By recognizing and supporting someone like Emma, he had amplified her ability to touch lives, multiplying the positive impact she had on children like Liam. It was a lesson in humility, gratitude, and thoughtful action, one that reminded him that the most meaningful investments in life were often emotional rather than financial. Over the following months, Emma's programs began to grow. She organized storytime sessions in hospitals, reached out to schools with fewer resources, created small literacy kits for children who couldn't visit the library regularly. With Jonathan's support, she could hire assistants, purchase books, and fund workshops that introduced more children to the magic of reading. Each success felt like a new victory. But Emma never forgot the little moments that started it, all the laughter, curiosity, and wonder she had shared with Liam in their quiet corner of the library. Liam, too, continued to blossom. His confidence grew steadily, and he began to explore new ways to engage with stories. He attempted to describe his own imaginative ideas, participate in group reading sessions, and interact with other children in the library. While he still faced challenges, the foundation Emma had helped him build made a lasting difference. He learned that his voice mattered, his ideas mattered, and that he could express himself in ways that brought joy to both himself and others. For Jonathan, seeing Liam's growth was deeply moving. He realized that the greatest gift he could give his son was not wealth, but the freedom to explore, imagine, and feel loved and understood. Emma's life also changed on a personal level. She received invitations to speak at literacy conferences, collaborate with other educators, and share her methods with a wider audience. Yet, she remained humble and grounded. The recognition never distracted her from the heart of her work, the children she served. Emma understood that her impact was greatest when she stayed true to her values: patience, empathy, and love for learning. Jonathan's gesture had not only provided her with resources, but it had also reinforced the idea that meaningful work is always noticed. Even if it goes unacknowledged by the wider world, the relationship between the three of them deepened as well. Jonathan became more present in Liam's life, spending quality time with his son. Guided by the lessons he had learned from observing Emma, he practiced patience, listening, and encouragement, modeling behaviors he had witnessed in the library sessions. Liam responded warmly, enjoying the increased attention and feeling more connected to both his father and Emma. The trio formed a unique bond, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Each story read in the library became a shared memory, a bridge between imagination and real life, and a reminder of how care and attention could transform the simplest moments into profound connections. Even the small moments became extraordinary. A quiet laugh when a character in a book made a mistake, a gleeful squeal when a story took an unexpected turn, or a whispered attempt by Liam to say a new word. Of these moments became treasures for Emma and Jonathan alike. They realized that happiness did not need grand gestures or wealth. It could be found in attention, presence, and the patience to nurture curiosity and imagination. For Liam, each moment reinforced the idea that he was seen, valued, and capable, strengthened his confidence in ways that would last a lifetime. Jonathan often reflected on the lessons it learned through the experience. He realized that true impact comes from understanding, empathy, and support, rather than material wealth alone. Emma had demonstrated this daily, showing that one person's dedication could create ripples that touched countless lives. Jonathan saw that by supporting her, he was not only helping her achieve her dreams, but also multiplying the positive effects she could create for children. Like Liam, it was a profound realization about the nature of giving, generosity, and human connection. The library, too, became a hub of inspiration. Parents, teachers, and children from the community began to notice the programs Emma had expanded. The reading corner, once quiet and intimate, now became a place of learning and discovery for many children. Stories, once limited to a single session, now reached audiences far beyond what Emma could have imagined. Yet, through all the growth and change, she maintained the same warmth, patience, and personal attention that had originally captured Jonathan's admiration. Emma's story began to inspire others as well. Volunteers joined her programs, parents became more engaged with their children's reading, and other librarians looked to her methods as an example of how passion and dedication could make a lasting difference. Jonathan quietly supported these efforts, ensuring that Emma had the freedom to innovate and expand without obstacles. The ripple effect of a single act of kindness, Emma's dedication to Liam, was now touching lives far beyond the original story, illustrating how one person's commitment could grow into something extraordinary. As months turned into a year, the bond between Liam, Emma, and Jonathan grew even stronger. Each story session was more than just reading. It became a shared experience of learning, love, and joy. Liam's progress continued steadily, with his confidence, communication, and creativity flourishing. Emma's influence extended far beyond the library walls. While Jonathan learned to appreciate the subtle, powerful ways human kindness could shape lives, the three of them became a living example of how patience, attention, and support could transform challenges into opportunities and turn ordinary moments into life-changing experiences. The story concluded with a sense of fulfillment and hope. Emma, empowered by recognition and resources, continued her mission to inspire children through reading. Jonathan, having acted thoughtfully and sincerely, discovered the profound rewards of gratitude and generosity. Liam thrived, his imagination, confidence, and happiness growing every day, shaped by the love and care he had received. Together, they demonstrated that wealth, when combined with thoughtful action and recognition of genuine human effort, could amplify goodness rather than replace it. Ultimately, the story highlighted a powerful truth: life's greatest gifts are not material. They are attention, empathy, patience, and the willingness to nurture others with sincerity. A quiet librarian's dedication had not only transformed a single child's life, but it also touched a father's heart, inspired a community, and created opportunities for countless others. The ripple effect of kindness, observation, and thoughtful support proved that extraordinary change could begin in the most ordinary of places, with the simplest of acts, and yet grow into something truly remarkable.